This video is going to be a film study focus on the Detroit Lions defense, what they were able to do in limiting and in fact shutting down the Philadelphia Eagles offense often in their Sunday Night Football loss. Of course, there's been a lot made of the style of play, the tactical and strategic choices that the Eagles make. Basically, are they trying to limit turnovers? Sure. Are they playing a safer brand of football because their defense is so effective? Absolutely. I accept all of those things. That is not the primary factor in what determined their production and their statistical output in terms of efficiency on Sunday night. Philadelphia was held to 16 first downs, 3.9 yards per play, and only 4 of 15 performance on third downs. The only other team that has held them, the only other defense that has held them down like this in 2025 really has been the Denver Broncos. This is a full-length film study. I think I have 14 or 15 plays to go over. Why? Because I think there's so many guys who are worthy of mention. I will have a standalone video on Rock Ya-Sin. I think Amik Robertson deserves mention. Brian Branch as well. Jack Campbell, I think, had 15 tackles. Interior defensive linemen were incredibly disruptive. What this defense was able to do, in my opinion, should give you a little bit of pride and encouragement as a Lions fan, of course, in a difficult week to accept a loss that puts you at 6-4. First play of the game here, Amik Robertson, man coverage against Devonta Smith at the bottom side of the screen, combative, and the thing that Amik is really good at is keeping his balance while landing these slight touches, jabs on receivers, if you will, as they're going down the field, but not making them so heavy such that he draws a penalty. Unfortunately, he does draw one in the second half. In my opinion, Jalen Hurts here is kind of looking at the middle of the field. Free safety Thomas Harper, perhaps to just confirm or check that he's not rolled over to the side where Devonta Smith is. It looks as if he's orienting his way over to this side where A.J. Brown is matched up with Rock Ya-Sin. In any case, down the field and Amik challenging at the catch point. He's very combative, undersized perhaps in some of the matchups that he has at times, not this one. I felt this was the right tactical choice by Kelvin Sheppard. Basically, Rock Ya-Sin on A.J. Brown and Amik on Devonta Smith. Basically, this whole defense refused to fold throughout the game, starting off with that particular play on the first possession. 2nd and 15 on the first possession again, and we're going to focus on the other side for a moment. Rock Ya-Sin up here against A.J. Brown, like I said, on a 2nd and 15. Outside release vertical, something that, the Eagles have been better against man, supposedly, throughout 2025. I recognize that those stats are probably accurate, but the way that Detroit played them almost seemed reactionary to the Kansas City game, whereby with so many DBs that were out, Kelvin Sheppard and Dan Campbell kind of made the decision to be a little bit less aggressive, if you will. This time, I think they said, okay, we're going to stay true to our roots and let our guys play man coverage, which is what they're good at. Rock is just getting into A.J. Brown. I actually think he's talking to him a little bit here. He held up throughout the night. The Eagles are better against man. The Lions major in man, if you will. Same play from the end zone angle here, by the way. Jumbo 12 personnel group. So you've got a 6th offensive lineman on, along with the actual tight end, Dallas Goedert. And it's a one-man screen concept to the left, first of all. Second of all, over here to the right side, you've got Aiden Hutchinson, and I think it's Tyleik Williams. I have no idea what the right tackle is doing in this case, with Aiden Hutchinson lined up so wide, settling his feet and just basically letting Aiden Hutchinson run past him, while the guard apparently tries to peel off and deal with Alex Anzalone. Some really weird stuff occurred in this game, specifically the right side of the Eagles' offensive line. And some of it, as an example with this play, when Lane Johnson was actually still on the field. The throw from Hurts, is obviously disrupted by Hutchinson, who had the free run to get in his face. Since Johnson chose to deal with Tyleik Williams, like I said, I have no explanation for what's happening there. Detroit, in my opinion, was able to disrupt them at times, run concepts, pass concepts, but in particular, pass pro situations. Second possession, this is the first time that Detroit's defense has their back up against the wall. This is after the interception by Goff that Jordan Davis tipped up in the air, and then Cooper DeJean picked off, and fortunately he was tackled before he could take it back to the house. So 12 personnel group, and Barkley's gets nothing here into the boundary, again with the ball on the left hash. So this is a look that I kind of refer to as the FU look for Detroit. And basically, they take one of their inside linebackers, roll them up to a tight end side. In this case, it's Jack Campbell. Derek Barnes is the edge defender, OLB, whatever you want to call him. It's also a great job by Aleem McNeil to win to the flow side. So basically, 69 is trying to reach him. 69 is trying to get to his outside shoulder, cut him off, such that, maybe Barkley can go in that lane outside of Aleem McNeil, between Aleem McNeil and Jack Campbell. McNeil's not having it, right? He's running with him, staying even. He does end up at a deficit for a moment. But first of all, you've got a great job of setting the edge by Derek Barnes, who's very physical at the point of attack. Second of all, Aleem, who did end up at a deficit, he did end up on the backside for a moment, has now got his head even. And then Jack Campbell taking on the left tackle at a size disadvantage for sure, but he's able to shed the block. It's McNeil, it's Barnes, it's Campbell, all involved in the play. This is a badass group on defense. And watching it live on Sunday night, I felt proud for what they were the product they were able to put on the field, despite being, put at a deficit, having to work uphill sometimes. Watching the film, it was even more impressive in my opinion. And that's why today, Tuesday, I worked for probably the better part of the day to try to produce this video. So, if you enjoy it, please let me know in the comment section. Like I said, this is a full-length video, so I expect it to be in the 35 to 40-minute range. In any case, same play from the all-22 angle, down into the boundary, out of 12 personnel. So the Eagles have got their two receivers, Brown and Smith, up to the top side. And credit Detroit, they're staying with who they are. Hey, we're just going to match you 2-on-2, play man, and we're going to let all this other stuff work itself out in our favor, and it does. You do not have numbers into the boundary here. The first tight end is stepping to Barnes. Second tight end kind of taking him over. Barnes gets his hands on, runs down the line. Watch him take on both tight ends. The first one and then the second one. McNeil has shed his block, the left guard. Campbell has shed his block, the left tackle. Three guys winning with block destruction, staying balanced down the line of scrimmage. They made life miserable for the Eagles' run game, for their offensive line, for all of them. I thought those guys played. I thought it was a heroic effort in light of the fact that the offense had so much trouble. Multiple guys on the interior are able to win their battles, regardless of who the right tackle is at times. This is a jumbo 12 group, a personnel group for the Eagles. So you're talking about two tight ends, one of which is an eligible offensive lineman, sixth offensive lineman. And again, Detroit is in what I would consider to be their FU look. Jack Campbell is walked up to the two tight end side, first of all, and then Alex Anzalone is the lone inside linebacker with Brian Branch walked up in the box. It's a fantastic job by Lacey from a 4-eye against Lane Johnson. So just basically resetting the line of scrimmage. We're talking about this matchup right here. And I will give you the end zone angle so you can see what I'm talking about when I say 4-eye. Hands on the inside on Lane Johnson, totally winning this rep. Barkley tries to cut it back. Lacey is there. I think you got a couple of other guys, second-level defender, Alex Anzalone, taking it on the correct side. When I call it the FU look, what I mean is they're trying to take away the run play to the strong side, just with numbers. It's almost a bear concept, even though this is not a bear alignment. It's a bear philosophy, I should say. Basically, you're going to have to run the ball somewhere else, and later on, Philadelphia tries to adjust to this look. It's the same play from the end zone angle. It's a 2nd and 3, like I said. So here's the matchup that we're talking about. Lacey versus Lane Johnson. He's in a 4-eye. Outside shade of the guard, 3 technique. Head up on the tackle, 4. Head up on the guard, 2. Head up on the tight end. Some people call it a 6. Some people call it a 7. I'm not into all that discussion. It's really no fun. But in any case, it's a 4-eye, inside shade of the tackle. Visual and pressure key on the tackle. So meaning you're getting your hands on the tackle and your eyes are on the tackle. Stands Lane Johnson up. No movement at all. Yeah, maybe Lane Johnson's feet are tangled up with a teammate. It's a great job, if you ask me, and then tries to peel off and make the play. Tyleek is also folding over the top here to try to make the play. A couple of times during the game, I felt like he took what I would consider to be an improper angle, but worked out in Detroit's favor here. In this case, it's a 2nd and 3 where Saquon gets a 2-yard gain. sets up obviously a 3rd and 1. And Detroit's, first of all, shuffling in different personnel groups to match the situation. And everyone they're putting on the field is having an impact, whether it's Harper replacing Kirby Joseph, or in this case, it's Nowaski. First snap, I think, in weeks on the defensive side is a 3rd and 1 on the 3rd possession when they're down 3-0 and the offense is being totally shut out. So goal line group, in my opinion, for Detroit, meaning you've got 4 defensive linemen on the inside. McNeil, Williams, I think that's DJ Reader, and I believe that is Lopez. So 4 down linemen. They've taken a DB off the field, and you got Branch and Nowaski set up as your, quote, edge defenders. In any case, it's motion by the wing to the top side of the screen and a reverse pivot from Hurts. Barkley is going directly downhill. And there's a lot happening here that is really cool. First of all, Tyleik Williams is absolutely stuffing Lane Johnson and driving him back. There is no push, no vertical displacement at all by Lane Johnson. Again, you've got a defensive lineman whose hands are on the inside into Lane Johnson's chest and is able to control him and make sure that he doesn't get any push. In addition, when DJ Reader gets his cleats, his toes in the ground like that, they're dug into the ground, you're not moving them. Line of scrimmage right here, just short of the 43. Combo block with the center and the guard on DJ Reader. Look at his cleats. That's his foot right there. Still in the same spot that it was. Actually, he's advanced a little bit. Left foot, right foot, not moved at all. He's got his cleats in the ground. He is literally holding the wall by himself. Forgive me if the video is staccato when I go slow like that, but trying to illustrate the point. I feel like I have to point it out. There's a lot of violence happening on this play that should hopefully give you some encouragement. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this video. I recognize the Lions fan base is down right now. I don't want to say depressed, but certainly feeling the effects of the loss. It was a nationally televised game. Many people before the season were saying the Lions are going to take a step back, and here you are at 6-4, trailing the Bears and the Packers. First of all, I still believe in this group. Second of all, I'm trying to give you the same feeling, and I think the defensive side is the one that should provide that. So same play from the end zone angle. It's a reverse pivot. Saquon Barkley going down the midline. There's DJ Reader. Incredible effort from him. Tyleik Williams is, I would say, in a 3 technique. His eyes seem to be on the guard as opposed to Lacey on the previous snap that I showed you, whose eyes were on Lane Johnson. Look at how he bows Lane Johnson back after the right guard tries to combo up. And there's really just nowhere to go. This is not, in terms of this engagement between Williams and Lane Johnson, on a 3rd and 1, this is not a fight that goes 12 rounds and is a decision. This is a 2nd round KO, meaning this rep right here for Tyleik Williams. And then Nowaski sneaking in the heels of the offensive line to make the tackle and stop Saquon Barkley. Look, they stopped the tush push twice, drew a penalty on a 3rd time. This is the 3rd stop in a row for this defense when their offense has got nothing done, right? Including the interception on the first possession. This is one of my favorite coverage snaps. It's not like anyone makes a great play. There's no PD or near interception. It's because on this 3rd and 8 on the 4th possession, you've got motion across by the Eagles, Devonta Smith, and then Arthur Millette going with him. Obviously, that makes it look like man. And this really reminds me of some stuff that Aaron Glenn used to do occasionally, but definitely later in the season after playing so much man. I do want to point out that if we're trying to disguise this as man, someone needs to be lined up over the tight end. Usually the guy to guard him man on 3rd downs is Alex Anzalone. So in terms of disguising this for guys like Jalen Hurts, who are super intelligent, it may not work. But regular people like us, I think this almost ends up looking like an invert cover 2, where Rock Ya-Sin, and I think that's Harper, to the other side are your 2 deep guys, but I recognize that it doesn't look perfect. They're calling it an invert cover 2, but what I mean when I describe that is the way that Branch is playing this. It almost looks like if this tight end goes vertical, Branch is going to run with him and match it, essentially like a Tampa 2. What I like about it is that Millette followed Devonta Smith in motion, number 1. Late, number 2, Branch does move over to make it look like he could be man. So set up to possibly give you the illusion that it's going to be man, and then post-snap, it's actually an invert cover 2. This is not man technique up here by Amik. He's passing that route by A.J. Brown off. My suspicion is if this were man, then we would probably have Rock Ya-Sin up here on A.J. Brown, and it could have been Amik Robertson following Devonta Smith. So maybe this was easy for Jalen Hurts to figure out. Far easier than novices like us, though. I just really love the fact that Kelvin Sheppard is obviously trying to disguise some stuff. Hurts does get to it quickly. The throw is low to Devonta Smith. I think part of it is because of the width that Arthur Millette gets. Hurts recognizes he can't throw this very far in that direction because he would bring Millette into play, if you will. Tries to stick the throw in between those two defenders, and it just doesn't work. Detroit gets their 4th consecutive stop. Yes, they are down 3-0 because of the interception by Goff that gave the Eagles offense, amazing field goal, amazing position to capitalize on a field goal. Moving forward a little bit here, we're into the 6th possession. This is after the fake failed punt by the offense for Detroit, which was preceded by a failure on 4th down. But in any case, it's 12 personnel group. From the Eagles, you got 2 tight ends up into the boundary and the running back set on the same side. I call this twin wing A. And it's a really nice fit by Campbell. And once again, it's Lacy. I believe he's in a 4-eye one more time. I will give you the end zone angle of this one. So check out Campbell. We'll try to rewind this a little bit and just so you can see his fit. I think he's playing about as good as it gets for an inside linebacker in the NFL in 2025. I would love to do a video on Jack Campbell at some point this week. My next priority for Lions stuff is really Rock Ya-Sin. Hopefully Thursday I can have something out on Jared Goff. Of course, he suffered through a really terrible night. Hopefully you've been tracking while I've been talking what Campbell's been doing. That's Jordan Mailata, the huge tackle for the Eagles that he's able to take on and shed. I think that's Lacy at the bottom there of the pile. Same play from the end zone angle. Here's the 2 tight ends. It's a 4-3 structure from a personnel standpoint for the Lions because you've got Anzalone, Campbell, and Barnes. So Mailata, the left tackle, or forgive me if I mispronounce his name, he's working up to Campbell immediately. You've basically got a combo on Lopez, who's the shade nose tackle, and to me, what looks like an under front. Watch how Campbell explodes out of his hips and his cleats into the ground to get the left tackle off of him. And then Lacy, one more time, we'll talk about him. He's not in a 4-eye. I was wrong. He's actually in a 5 outside shade of the tackle. My apologies for that. So the tight end tries to take him over, and Lacy just really tosses the left tackle into Campbell and then deals with what could possibly be a hold by the tight end. Those 2 guys play an incredibly violent. It's a 2nd and 3. Like I said, I think that the Eagles actually pick up the 1st down, but nothing was easy. They had to pay a price for it. The Lions played the quality and the style of defense against the run, downhill stuff like this, such that the next time the offensive coordinator or your head coach called that play, in your mind, as you're lining up as an offensive tackle, tight end, running back, whatever, you knew that it was going to be a fight to try to get 3 or 4 or even 5 yards. Still on the 6th possession, and I love this play because of how Detroit aligns pre-snap and how they kind of don't even really respect the motion. So they've gone cowboy. So what I mean when I call cowboy is when a team sets 2 receivers to one side out of a 21 personnel group, or in this case 12 personnel, they put both outside corners on the same side. Rock Ya-Sin, who most of the time was matched up with A.J. Brown, and then Amik Robertson, who most of the time was matched up with Devonta Smith. From this formation, which I generally refer to as broken bunch, the Lions ran it a ton previously under Ben Johnson, Eagles always motion Devonta Smith across. And so the versatility of Brian Branch, what it allows you to do is post-snap, he can be a corner. And so he can match up man against a guy like a Devonta Smith, not for extended periods of time, but if you wanted him to play man, I don't actually think this is. This is not a read by Jalen Hurts. This is a design screen. And because Amik didn't move with the motion, That's what puts him in position to make this play. The right tackle can't get to him in time, such that Amik is able to sneak around the blocking scheme, basically circumvent the blocking scheme because he didn't have to move with the motion. I think the versatility of guys like Barnes, Branch, even Alex Anzalone is really paying dividends for this defense. They're playing spectacular. As an aside, both the Ravens and the Lions defense have been playing extremely well lately. This is the second time where I think Kelvin Sheppard's group has played championship quality defense in 2025. A second time recently, I should say. The other one, of course, was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're trying to make it look like a read with a mesh between Hurts and Saquon Barkley, but it's not. It's not a read. Watch the offensive linemen. After I paused it here, they release to go out and attack upfield for the screen. Amik destroys the whole thing. Am I saying this? Kelvin Sheppard knew there was going to be a screen here? No. But the structure of the defense, you would assume, if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, with how much man they play, you would assume that when Smith motions across, Amik Robertson's going to go with him. Kelvin Sheppard has a fantastic touch on the flow of the game and how to call plays depending on down and distance and also game situation. This one is actually a little frustrating, and I put this play concept in the video twice. So very next play, after that TFL for Amik, it's a 3rd and 11. This is QB log draw. The Eagles have run this since 2021. Credit them for keeping this in the playbook, and I'm disappointed that Detroit didn't have a better handle on it. So I'll give you the formation from the All-22 here first. Like I said, keep in mind it's a 3rd and 11. So 2 high safety structure for the Lions. That's Barnes over the tight end, and here's Campbell widened out over number 3. Let's go back to the end zone angle so you guys can understand what I'm talking about. I just talked about Barnes and Campbell. You can see all the width that there is here in between the tackles. Basically, the defensive ends, if it's empty against the Eagles, 3rd down, and they're past the 50, then you got to look for QB log draw. They've been running this play since 2021. It's a great job, if you ask me. I suspect that they probably have this just in as a check, for when they go empty. Detroit was prepared for everything. This was the only concept I felt like they were not prepared for. The only situation, I should say. Barnes is way off screen to our left. He's with the wide receiver or the tight end. And I do think that Jalen Hurts is going to get this first down. That blue line is the line to gain to get the first down. But it definitely goes down as a missed tackle for Muhammad, which is really unfortunate. If Muhammad and Hutchinson were checking draw first out of empty, yes, that's going to influence their ability to get pass rush. Let me ask you this. How effective was Jalen Hurts in the pass game? Not much. He was 14 of 28 for, I think, less than 140 yards. How effective do you think he would be coming in? I did not get the impression that he was going to light this team up with the pass game. This is the only play concept that I would say Kelvin Sheppard and his staff, his team, didn't necessarily have a great plan for. Same play from the All-22 angle. That's Anzalone, Campbell, Barnes, the 3 inside linebackers. So you're talking about a 4-3 structure on 3rd and 11, which is really cool. The only thing that's not cool about it is Barnes expands with the tight end. You're in a 2 high safety structure. Numbers-wise, the defensive ends have to be a part of this play. I'm not saying they need to fold inside and give up the edge and make things easy for Hurts to bounce it outside, but this is a known concept that the Eagles run in this situation. There's the line to gain. Barnes, way too wide to do anything about it. So is Campbell. Muhammad is there to make a tackle. I just don't think those guys are playing it with the proper technique to respect the fact that the Eagles are willing to run this play. They've shown it on film, but you have to give Philadelphia credit. They run it so infrequently that it can almost be ignored from a game plan standpoint. But one thing that has to be said about this Lions defense overall for 2025, but in particular on Sunday night, is they're extremely resilient. 2 plays later, after that conversion from Jalen Hurts on the 3rd and 11. Interesting alignment from Amik because he's attached to or assigned to guard Devonta Smith. This is going to be a screen to Barkley to the top side of our screen, to the wide side of the field. So Smith is going to run underneath of Jalen Hurts in front of him to go down into the boundary. And then Saquon Barkley to the field is going to be matched by Alex Anzalone. My suspicion here is that this is man. This is a really nicely designed play, in my opinion, because they're clearing out with the two receivers to the field. When I say the two receivers, I'm talking about A.J. Brown and Jahan Dotson. Those guys are clearing out space, assuming that they're going to get man, and just basically opens up that entire side of the field. If Anzalone wasn't so quick to see this and track with Barkley, you got a real opportunity to make a play here if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, but Anzalone is right there. Man, these guys are spectacular on Sunday night. You can ask the guys that are in the Lions Discord. I was probably annoying Monday night into Tuesday texting like, man, this defense was fun to watch because your team just lost, right? And lost on national television in a way that the offense was, quite honestly embarrassed at times. But these dudes on the defensive side, man, it's exciting to watch people play defensive football at this high a level in the first place. But to do it under the extremely challenging and demanding circumstances they were facing, offense getting nothing accomplished, in fact, going for it on fourth down so many times and failing, putting them in difficult situations, man, it should hopefully give you some encouragement and, like I said, some sense of pride. So here's the same play from the end zone angle. I'm just not sure how you expect to get to Anzalone if your design, off screen with these two receivers over here is assuming that it's man. Well, then how are you going to get to Anzalone? To me, you should pick him. One of those receivers should run into the guy that's assigned to Anzalone. I'm talking about right here. He should try to run into Anzalone or make Anzalone go over the top. And it just doesn't seem like, I think it's Jahan Dotson, is willing to do that. There is just no way that this center is going to be able to get to him. What I would think they would do is, have the center take a different angle and then almost like a mesh concept, have the center's right shoulder and Jahan Dotson's right shoulder. I don't want to say meet. You don't want to run into each other like earlier in the year the Chiefs did, Travis Kelce and one of their receivers. But force Anzalone basically to go over the top such that the center can go underneath and then loop under to meet him. Hopefully I explained all that in a way that makes sense. You got a little bit of a design flaw perhaps here for the Eagles in that the receivers off screen to our right at the the top side of our screen when I showed you the all 22, they were behaving as if it was man, and in fact it was. But they weren't recognizing, the design didn't recognize that what's going to hold Anzalone, what's going to prevent him from getting there with how dedicated the Lions are to their angles and their coverage, especially when they're in man. Detroit was actually able to hold for a field goal there and allow Philly to only take a 6-0 lead. Of course, Jared Goff and Jamison Williams come down, tie the game on a 40-yard touchdown, and then they missed the extra point. So, seventh possession for the Eagles, still into the second quarter. It's a 12-personnel group. There's some communication happening pre-snap between Anzalone and Hutchinson. So, this is one where Hutchinson spills it or wrong arms it, and basically you're expecting a gap exchange if you're Aiden Hutchinson. The concept is the left guard is going to pull to kick out the edge defender, Hutchinson, and then the tight end wraps to presumably go block the front side inside linebacker. Most people call it F counter. Hutchinson actually goes underneath of that block after momentarily being entangled with the tight end. And he'll go underneath of the block by the pulling left guard. You can see the problem. Anzalone played it like he was going to fit to the inside, and Hutchinson played it like Anzalone was going to spill or loop over the top in what most people refer to as a gap exchange. I'll give you the end zone angle so you can see it in a moment, but obviously the running back, Bigsby, bounces it outside. It's a 2nd and 13. You had just got a tackle for loss on Saquon Barkley. To give up that space with the quality of defense that have been played so far, really, really frustrating. You can actually see these guys communicating from this angle, post-snap, Hutchinson and Anzalone. I'm not a body language expert, but for me, looking at the body language, just based on my limited experience, I would say Alex Anzalone should fold over to the top. But the problem is this tight end could theoretically seal him off. Same play from the end zone angle. There's the F counter scheme. I think I've reversed my colors here, but let me pull that all out of there for a moment. There's the left guard is going to pull and kick out the defensive end edge defender, which is Hutchinson. And then this tight end pull and then log or wrap all the way around, I should say, to go get the frontside inside linebacker. If you set it inside, like Hutchinson could, he's played it like this plenty of times, basically you set the edge, and then Anzalone and Campbell can fit underneath. They'll possibly have blocks to deal with from the first level, guys comboing up to them. But at least the idea is it's declared. All guys are on the same page. Here they are clearly not. Anzalone is playing it like Hutchinson's going to set it to the inside. So basically force the ball to the inside. Hutchinson is playing it like a spill or a wrong arm technique. If Anzalone and him were on the same page, then Anzalone would be stepping outside to loop to the outside. You can see, obviously, that the tight end would have an opportunity to try to block him. So, that concept still may not work. But the idea is, gave him a free lane for Bigsby to get outside. Looks like Amik is possibly trying to force a fumble. I think it ends up being a 17-yard gain. Eagles get a late touchdown there in the second quarter, and I believe take a 13-6 lead into the half. Very frustrating third quarter for Detroit's offense. You had 3 situations where they go for it on fourth down and they don't get either one of them. This is Philadelphia's 9th possession. And so this is where I think that the guys on defense are digging so deep to make stops that it's borderline shocking what they're able to accomplish. Even though they're down 13-6, eventually it becomes 16-6. This is after the second failed fourth down attempt by Detroit's offense. It really could have been or should have been 13-9 at this point. We're talking about it was inside the 5 when Detroit goes for it. The incomplete pass in the end zone, I believe, intended for Amon-Ra St. Brown. In any case, it's a 12 personnel group on a 1st and 10. Split sack between Lopez and Aiden Hutchinson. Really lazy rep from the right guard, number 1. Number 2, another extremely confusing reaction from the right tackle. This happens to be a different right tackle. Obviously, Lane Johnson is out of the game at this point. So the right guard is stepping to McNeil, and then he'll start to act like he's going to deal with Lopez. Lopez has already got the angle, though, on Jalen Hurts, and then you can see that so does Aiden Hutchinson. But check out the right tackle, 74. Steps to McNeil, and then peels off like he's going to go get Aiden Hutchinson. Man, it's a difficult thing to watch from an Eagles standpoint and think that wholesale changes are going to occur when they can't even block basic play action stuff schematically or tactically. This isn't like they're not physically able to block Lopez, McNeil, or Hutchinson, like the Lions offensive line trying to deal with Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Phillips, and others. This is just really, really poor design or poor implementation, I should say, on the field. Second failed fourth down by the offense, and this defense just will not quit. I think that should actually say it's the 10th possession. This is the same play from the all-22 angle. Lopez, Hutchinson. There's the route design a little bit deeper downfield for A.J. Brown, and I think you've got a clear out route from up at the top side of the screen. For me, the Lions are bringing pressure here, Branch, and he kind of puts the stop sign on when he sees the running back start to go across his face. We're talking about right here. I believe he's looking for perhaps the running back to maybe leak out into the flats, and then he would match that route. Look at the push that Lopez gets. I'm impressed with the interior defensive line for Detroit, to be honest with you. Lacey played really well. Lopez played really well. We would expect that McNeil, Reeder, and the first-round pick, Tyleik Williams, will be able to perform. But the combination of those 4 or even 5 guys, I think, gives a tremendous amount of depth. And plays like this, games like this, I should say, we should, at this point, pretty much expect. This is the 3rd time that they stop the offense. Excuse me, there's a 3rd time that the offense gets stopped on fourth down here, and gives the ball to the Eagles, I believe, on the plus 43. Here's an example of the same F counter concept where Bigsby bounced it out earlier. If you recall, where Hutchinson tried to spill it or wrong arm it, and Anzalone didn't fold over the top, or perhaps Hutchinson was wrong. Really doesn't matter to me. I'm just trying to illustrate the concept. So the way this works out is Barnes is going to set it to the inside, okay? And that allows Campbell to fit underneath as well as Anzalone. I think Anzalone almost tries to fast flow this a little bit too much. So it's an F counter scheme. Let's move that out of the way for a moment. The left guard is going to pull and go try to kick out the edge defender. That's Barnes. The tight end, 81, would loop and go get the frontside inside linebacker, Jack Campbell. And then the running back's path takes him off the midline. He'll veer behind those. The reason why he goes off the midline away from the point of attack momentarily is to give the blockers time to get out in front. This is setting it or knocking it back inside versus what Hutchinson tried to do earlier, spill or wrong arm technique. In addition, when you get the all-22 angle, you will appreciate what Aleem McNeil does to the right tackle here, 74. Basically forces the running back, Barkley, and the tight end, 81, to bow their path back to the outside. Anzalone actually ends up folding over the top of Campbell. I don't think that he necessarily should, unless Campbell should have fit this tighter and then allow Anzalone to, quote, be right and fast flow over the top. As it stands, Campbell, McNeil, and Anzalone are all there. Look, the score is only 13-6 at this point, even though Philadelphia has been handed great field position a couple of times in this third quarter. Same play from the all-22 angle, and to give you a real great idea of what Aleem McNeil does here to the right tackle, because you'll see this F counter scheme get totally blown up or the offensive line bowed back. Really nice job, or I should say angle, to look at how Barnes, Campbell, and Anzalone play this from their three inside linebacker alignment. That's McNeil taking the right guard, or right tackle, setting him back in the tight end's path and in the way of Saquon Barkley. Total disruption of the run game throughout the whole game. Really, Barkley, I think, was 23 for 86, somewhere in that range. Total for the Eagles, they were 40 carries for 148 yards. This is during a time when the Lions are trying to get their third consecutive stop after a turnover on downs by the offense. We've switched now to the fourth quarter, and it's a 3-3 dime look for the Lions on the field. So we're talking about Barnes, Anzalone, and Campbell as the three inside linebackers. Muhammad, I think McNeil, and Hutchinson as your three up front. So hence the phrase or terminology, 3-3. It's going to be a completed pass to the bottom side of the screen to A.J. Brown against Rock Ya-Sin, number 1. I think there's also a penalty here called up top on Amik. I have no idea where Jalen Hurts is looking. And I'm going to talk about this for a moment just because it's so confusing to me. It almost looks like a head fake or a pump fake situation. And when you get the end zone angle, I maybe these lines here are not drawn at the proper angle to illustrate where he's looking. Maybe he actually is looking in this direction. Feel free to correct me in the comments section if you think so. When you get the end zone, I'm not trying to make fun of him. I'm trying to understand what actually is happening here. The only thing I can think is that he's dramatically looking in this direction to try to maybe move one of these defenders somewhere, but I have no idea who. But in any case, he quickly comes back to the top side of our screen or turns over his left shoulder. So it's not even like after he does this, he's looking here to A.J. Brown versus Rock Ya-Sin. He goes back up to the top side of the screen. This is Amik on, I think it's Dotson, and the referee is pulling the flag up off the screen for us. Fine. I don't really have a great angle of it, but there certainly seems to be some disruption. Hurts gets out of there. It's an actual three-man rush, so you don't have – this is not 3+1 spy where either Barnes or Anzalone or Campbell is the +1 rusher, the fourth guy, so it allows Hurts to escape. A little disappointing because of how exceptional they had been so far this year in these situations with a three-man rush and a fourth guy adding on. You could have possibly put, a little bit more pressure on Hurts trying to make this throw. It's a spectacular job, man, by A.J. Brown. Like I said, penalty on Amik at the top side anyway. They would have got the first down. It's a great play by A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. Also a really nice rep from Aleem McNeil in the middle, just basically driving the center back into Jalen Hurts' lap, even though he gets chipped briefly by the left guard. You can see Jalen Hurts' helmet and whole upper body dramatically turned to his right, our left. There's no receiver out there. We know that. We know that it's A.J. Brown out there being guarded by Rock Ya-Sin. Again, the only thing I can think is that he's doing that to cause a defender to move because he immediately turns and looks over his left shoulder. Just very random and unique and unusual to me. If you have an explanation for it and that makes me sound dumb, feel free to let me know in the comment section. But great catch, man, by A.J. Brown here. In this stat sheet, though, it's listed as no gain. I don't understand it. To me, it looked like it was just short of the first down, meaning when he got control of the football and went out of bounds. I thought it would be like a yard short, if you will. But, again, feel free to correct me in the comment section. I thought Rock competed against him, interrupted his flow often on the night, and in fact, in some cases, out and out had A.J. Brown frustrated. Perhaps could actually be labeled as the 11th possession, and we're early into the fourth quarter. It's a 3rd and 6. Another disappointing look by the defense, who I've spent considerable time praising and telling you that you should consider looking at this effort as borderline heroic. But again, it pops up unfortunately on a 3rd and down. It's an empty formation by the Eagles. Let me show you guys from the All-22 what I mean. Empty formation. So you've got Branch, Amik. There's Jack Campbell out over the running back. Anzalone over top of the tight end, and then I think that is Rock up to the top side against A.J. Brown. So we'll pull this back, and you can see the end zone angle again. All of those numbers and playing man, what that means is you've got a 4-1 in the box. So 4 down linemen to rush, Muhammad, Reeder, McNeil, and Hutchinson from right to left. The DNs have to help here. There's just no way that you can play this numerically. Now, it's not the same concept. So usually what they would do, if you had a shaded nose tackle, then let's say that DJ Reader, if I had the ability in my graphics program to put DJ Reader's body there, then what would happen is the left guard would block down on him, and then the center would loop out and go lead the way. You guys saw that concept from a mirrored standpoint earlier in the game. I diagrammed it from this very same angle. No awareness, man. That's the most disappointing thing. McNeil, Hutchinson are chasing a sack, and I think that DJ kind of loses his balance or something. There's the gap, obviously. Barnes doesn't go the wrong way. Barnes got 2 gaps to cover. He can't cover this. No one else is even in the area code to possibly help him. So, for me, I think this is just a lack of preparedness, which contrasted with the praise that I'm giving Kelvin Sheppard's defense, I know might sound hypocritical. I can separate the way that they played 97% of the game versus these quarterback log draw situation. Same play from the All-22. You can see why numbers-wise it doesn't work, even though you've only got a 1 high safety look. Inside linebacker pulled out of the box. Another inside linebacker pulled out of the box, Anzalone, but that's typical when he's playing man on a tight end. And Barnes is really just on an island. If the defensive ends are not going to help, if it's empty formation, basically you've got to have a check. And these guys, Hutchinson, Muhammad, whoever the D end is on the other side, they've got to be more patient and say, okay, we can't chase a sack here because there's a chance that it's draw. It's just called draw check or check draw. That's it. And then you can proceed on your pass rush. This is simple. And so it's really surprising to me that Kelvin Sheppard's defense, which played at such a high level, got beat by this twice because it allowed the Eagles to take a 16-6 lead. I had that labeled as 3rd quarter. That was incorrect. That was obviously the 4th quarter. So this will actually be the last offensive snap of the game that really matters. And it's of course, going to be the DPI that's called on Rock Ya-Sin. I loved Rock's interview and the way he explained it. Something like A.J. Brown's a great player. I think he said he's a good player. He's a talented player. He's a great player. And sometimes those guys get calls like that. Perfect explanation because he did nothing wrong, in my opinion. Those guys are just battling. I don't think A.J. Brown did anything wrong either, to be honest with you. One concern for me, and when I give you the end zone angle, you can kind of check it out for yourself. It almost looks like the guys on the inside here are talking about QB draw. Man, they don't run QB draw unless it's empty. That's really frustrating for me that the Lions prep would not have covered that base, if you will. They have never really run QB draw if there's a running back in the backfield. Really, the only time they do it is out of empty. Compare Jalen Hurts, the angle of his helmet and his upper body as he prepares to throw this football out here to A.J. Brown, to the play that I showed you before, where he was almost looking, parallel to the line of scrimmage. Again, I don't know, how to explain that, but tell me what you think. Do you think there's any chance that interference should be called here? I do not see Rock Ya-Sin holding him really at all, but certainly not for any extended period of time. It looks to me like A.J. Brown is pushing him off, and Rock is trying to stay as connected as possible. I just don't see where that's a defensive pass interference. The best reaction or comment that I saw, I think, was on Twitter Tuesday morning, and it was a post that showed a picture of it. My assumption is that it was a Lions fan. It showed a picture of the scenario, those two guys battling, and it said something like, "This is an obvious interference call. It's quite clear to me that the receiver did not give the defensive back a chance to make a play on the ball." And there was actually a couple of people who fell for the bait and didn't necessarily perhaps read the wording of it. I thought it was a tremendous troll job. The NFL refs deserve criticism at this point for that situation, and many others, don't get me wrong. Rock Ya-Sin played an incredible football game. The flag was, a little bit late in terms of when it arrived. I don't really care about that. I care about the fact that they considered throwing one at all. It really ruined an opportunity for the Lions to at least have a chance to go down and tie the game. Do I think that there's a high probability they do so against an Eagles defense that dominated them throughout? No, I don't. I think that the Eagles defense is a better chance, that they go out there and get a stop, maybe 70% plus. We're focusing on the Detroit Lions defense here. I think they still gave the team a chance to win despite all the problems on offense. The interception thrown by Goff, missing 3 starters in the defensive secondary. They made Hurts look terrible at times. 14 of 28, I think 135 yards or 138 yards passing. Run game got, nothing done. It was 148 yards, don't get me wrong, but it's not like they were consistently able to push or bully this Lions defense at all. You saw some of their better blockers, right tackle and the left tackle, losing at the point of attack to guys like Jack Campbell, Tyleik Williams, Lacey, Ali McNeil, and others. Were it not for those 2 third-down conversions on empty log draw, you could say this is close to a perfect game that the Lions defense played, along with, obviously, the times when Aiden Hutchinson let the running back, get outside. As an aside, from an efficiency standpoint, this is the worst game of the year for the Eagles offense. Myself and some people in the Lions Discord created a metric. I should have taken a picture and posted it up here for you guys. The lowest score for the Philadelphia Eagles offense this season from a 0 to 100 scale was a 16 earlier in the year against the Denver Broncos. This past week was a 15. Basically, the Lions defense at this point in time is matching up with some of the best in the league from a statistical standpoint and when you watch the film. That's the reason why I spent such an extended period of time putting this out. Look, usually after a loss, fans don't want to watch games, so I'm kind of being stubborn or hard-headed here, putting out almost an hour-long video on the Lions defense after they lost on the road in a nationally televised game. I wanted to convey or try to convey the respect that Kelvin, Sheppard, and all those guys on the defensive side deserved. It reminds me of the way they played against the Bucs this year, Week 18 last year against the Vikings. An amazing defensive performance ruined by a number of factors, of course, in the end, but one that I think is still worthy of our attention, or at least my own, in trying to break it down from a film study standpoint. If you guys appreciated the video, please let me know in the comment section, number 1. Number 2, if you'd like to see my work, shared out on social media, please consider grabbing a link to this video, posting it somewhere on social media so as many Lions fans as possible can enjoy it as well. Appreciate you guys' time.